Uh, Dear participants, faculty, and research scholars, today we have a very eminent speaker with us, personality, Dr. Prakash Vargavkar, sir. Sir is emeritus scientist, CSIR NC Pune. Uh, I will just introduce about sir. Vargavkar sir's current research interest in controlled polymerization methods, monomer and polymer from renewable resources, high performance polymers, polymers for optoelectronics, associating polymers, polymeric material for gas separation studies, self-healing polymers, and so on. Sir have various awards on his credit. So Sir has Jeevan Gaurav Puraskar Lifetime Achievement Award 2017 from Solapur University, NCL Research Foundation Scientific of the Year, Fellow of Maharashtra Academy of Science, Professor M. Santappa Silver Jubilee Award in Polymer Science for the year 2006, Professor Sukumar Maiti Polymer Award Foundations Award, CSR Technology Award. Since Sir is member of many committees, many technical committees, education committees, and he's a life member of Society for Political Science India. Sir has been deputed for foreign assignment. Uh, Sir was visiting professor LCQ University of France. Sir was visiting professor in France during May and June 2013. He was visiting scientist ESPCI, University of Paris, France. Sir was visiting scientist again also in France. Sir has been invited many times. Research associate, sir has worked as research associate in USA. Various consultancies and assignment Vargavkar sir has handled, and sir is on Vinquist editorial board member for various journals, guest editors in many reputed uh, research publications. Number of publication, total number of publication, Vargavkar sir is having 215. Then reviewed article 3, so many book chapters sir has written. Height index of sir is 34. Height index is 124. Patents is a very credible achievement which sir is having. Total 23 international patents Vargavkar sir is having, and this is sir greatest achievement of yours. And we are all blessed to have you here on this platform of AICT Atal Development Course in association with VNet Nagpur. Sir has supervised 20 PhD scholars till date, and currently 4 are working under Sir's guidance. Sir has visited USA, Canada, France, Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, Switzerland, Brazil, South Korea. So, dear participants, I'm happy to uh, announce that such a great personality is with us today. I request on behalf of our director VNIT, on behalf of AICT, Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, and on behalf of our all participants and research scholars, request you to start your presentation.
Okay, good morning. At the outset, I would like to thank Professor Sonone for a very generous introduction. And I'm also grateful to Dr. Sriram Sonone, Dr. Suresh Umre, Dr. Deepak Pinjari, the director of the institute, and the management for providing me this platform to communicate, with all of you. So it's really a great thing that, Dr. Sriram Sonone has done by organizing this workshop, and I'm able to see that, he has invited faculty from all the elite institutions. So I would like to congratulate him for all these efforts. Okay. So what I would like to do in the next 1 hour or so is to talk to you about, rethinking resources and recycling of plastics. I know the theme of this conference is nanotechnology for green processes and sustainable development. Okay, so I will not be talking about the nanotechnology aspects, but definitely I will be talking about the green processes and sustainable development. Okay, of course, as you can see, a more sustainable future is based on science. Okay, and I'm going to elaborate to you how plastics can make the sustainable development. Okay, of course, as you know, the general notion is that the plastics are enemies of environment. That's what the general notion is. But what I would like to do is try to clarify, plastics actually are environmentally friendly. Of course, there are certain concerns, there are certain issues, with the overuse of plastics. So the way I have planned my presentation is I'm going to actually first give you the importance of plastics. Before we actually talk ill effects of the plastic, it's important to know how useful this class of materials are. So friends, plastics is not only the carry bags. That's what the common people think. When we mention the word plastics or polymers, people associate this, with the cheap, the carry bag. Okay, the humble carry bag. And but plastic is not only about the carry bags, but plastics actually are considered as advanced class of materials. Okay, these are advanced materials, smart materials. Okay, so I am going to tell you about the importance of plastics. And as a scientist, one has to be honest, about what these materials are. So I will also tell you about the other side of the coin, that what bad things plastics have done, or what are the issues or concerns by the excessive use of plastics has happened. Okay, and now of course I will also tell you about how plastics can be made safer and greener. And of course, when we talk about greening of plastics or making the plastic safer, these two lines of actions are very very important. That is the resource utilization and the waste minimization. Okay, so it's all about what are the resources which we use to make plastics, and what do we do with plastics when its intended use is over. So these are the two important aspects which I'm going to cover. That is the resource utilization and the waste minimization. And in line with this, comes the concept of green technology, or the green chemistry and engineering. And one of the 12 principles. Sriramji, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, okay. Because there is some background noise, so I just wanted to check with you. Okay. So, in line with the principles of green chemistry and engineering, I will talk to you about some of the work which we have carried out in our lab over the past decade in the area of bio-based monomers and polymers. Okay. And as you know that renewability is one of the concepts, one of the 12 concepts of green chemistry. So when you talk about renewable means basically these are bio based. Okay, I mean these materials could be of bio origin or animal origin. So how can we take these agricultural waste materials, okay, which are of bio origin, which are actually waste product? So how can you do the valorization of the waste? So I'm going to share some of the results from our laboratory on utilization of two of the agricultural waste materials, that is cashew nut shell liquid and lignin derived aromatic chemicals, as the source of monomers. And of course, like I mentioned, the two lines of actions which are important is to the resource utilization. So this comes under the category of resource utilization. And then what do we do with the waste minimization, or what do we do with the waste plastics? So that is called as polymer recycling. So this is what the outline of my presentation is. So, and of course, let me also tell you that this is not a sales talk, meaning I will not be only talking about the bright side of the plastics, but also share with you what are the concerns or what are the issues with the plastics, so that you get a holistic view of the this area or this class of materials. Okay. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, indeed, health is more important. As health is wealth. That's what we have been saying, and everybody wants to live longer. Okay, and what I want to just show in this slide is the human race has made tremendous progress. Okay, and there have been age like iron the iron age, the Bronze Age, the Steel Age, and what we are living today is in the age of plastics. Okay, I mean it's not an exaggeration. If I say that today we live in the 21st century or 20th century, we live in the age of plastics. Okay, and what we have shown here, the life expectancy. If you take a look at this graph here, you see the life expectancy of the humans on this planet was in the average of 26 years only. In the age of Bronze Age or in the Iron Age. And when you see here, from the 1900, there is sudden rise in the life expectancy. And in the today's modern world, in fact, we live, I mean, the life expectancy of the humans is close to 70 years. Of course, I will not get into those specifics. But what I want to point out here, there is something to do with the modern science and the modern technology with the life expectancy. Okay, the life has become more comfortable, and thanks to the developments in the area of chemistry, in the area of advanced materials, the life expectancy has gone up. And of course, there is a strong relationship between when we talk about the modern world, about the life expectancy and the age of plastics. The first ever synthetic polymer or the plastic was made in 1907. So the polymer science has a history of more than 110 years. And as you can see here, the life expectancy has gone up, from 1900 to, the current life expectancy is around 70 years. So there is a strong relationship between the kind of materials, which humans use and the life expectancy. Okay. So that's the kind of correlation I just wanted to tell you. And of course, there is a lot of developments which have taken place in the industrial sector, and today we are actually talking about Industry 4.0. Okay, and when we talk about Industry 4.0, we definitely need advanced materials. Okay, so the plastics are actually considered as advanced materials in view of the this industrialization what we are talking about. And more importantly, I just want to draw your attention, all these ages, or all these periods are actually known by materials. Okay. Like we talk about Bronze Age, we talk about Steel Age, we talk about, Plastic Age. So the importance of materials is actually very, very high, when we talk about all this civilization, the progress of the civilization or the modernization of the civilization. Okay. So the point I want to drive home here is there is a direct relationship between what materials we use and the comforts which those materials bring to us, and also life expectancy. Okay, so this is very, very important. Like I said, everybody wants to live longer. Okay, and definitely plastics contribute to the life expectancy, and that's what I'm going to show you in the next slide. Next slide, please. Sriramji, next slide, please. Of course, previous slide. I think this statement is suffice to say how important these polymeric materials are or plastic materials are. In fact, this is one of the prime example of science employed in the service of humanity. Okay, and you can the picture speaks for themselves. So I don't think I need to elaborate further on what are the applications of plastics or what are the uses of plastics. This is one of the very huge industry. In fact, the world produces more than 350 million tons of plastics, every year, and this industry is growing at the rate of 10% per annum. And what is important to note here, it's a diverse group of materials. Okay, we have soft plastics to hard plastics or plastics which we can survive low temperatures. So plastics which survive high temperatures like 450 degrees centigrade. And these are the various applications of plastics. Okay, and they have a large impact on the other technologies also. You can see here the space research what we are talking about, or the water purification or the harvesting of solar energy. The plastics find applications in all those sectors. So to make a long story short, I would like to say that plastics find application from bucket to rocket. So these are the wide ranging applications which plastics have, and they have definitely impacted the lifestyle or the modern lifestyle. Okay, this is a very diverse group of materials. Okay, next slide, please. Of course, I can give a separate talk on what are the applications of plastic, but today's time everybody is worried about the health issue. Health has taken really a prime importance because of this corona. Okay, and now you can see it is very difficult to imagine, medical science without the use of polymers. Okay, I mean, many times, like, people say it's an enemy of the environment. Okay, and there have been some slogans, or there have been some announcement of banning of plastic bags. Of course, it's right in their own way, but I don't think, we can imagine a modern life without the use of plastics. And when we talk about the applications of plastics in medical fields, you can see the list is long. There are medical implants, surgical instruments, artificial tissues, biosensors, prostheses. And in today's time, all of us are talking about personal protection equipment. Okay, packaging of the drugs or pharmaceutical and drug delivery systems. So you can see the wide range of applications of polymers or plastics in medical fields. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, like I said, plastics find a wide range of application, but in today's context, I would like to, emphasize this point of where the plastics actually have come to our rescue. As you know, there is no vaccine available for COVID-19. Of course, all scientists are working day and night to develop these, vaccines or some drugs, but still it is not in the sight. Okay, it's going to take some more time. But today, what we can do is to prevent the spread of this virus. And how can we do that? Just by protecting ourselves, from this virus by making use of the polymers. Okay, and you can see here, what these our frontline workers or the medical professionals or the nurses, what they are actually doing. They are taking the risk actually of treating the patients by protecting themselves with the help of all these, materials. Okay, which are made up of nothing, no other material but plastics. You can see, imagine, if there were no personal protective equipment, I don't think, doctor will have courage to treat the patient, okay, or to handle those patients. So you can see the surgical mask, face shield, gowns, surgical suits, the medical gloves. Okay, all of these are made up of polymers or plastics. Okay, the ventilators. Okay, the diagnostic kits, the polymer swab, which is actually used to take the sample from the patient's throat or from the nasal cavity. Okay, you can see plastics do find applications. And in fact, in last year actually, Maharashtra government had put a ban on the use of single-use plastics. Okay, imagine, if we continue the same way, I don't think we will have all these protection equipments or these polymer swabs or gloves. Okay, so that means, probably government has to rethink the decision on banning the use of single-use plastics. And if these polypropylene or these single-use plastics were not available, I think it would have been a really very complex situation, when dealing with this COVID-19. So the point I'm just trying to hear, like, this is what the life expectancy or the human health is actually also, there's a strong correlation between the usage of plastics in the medical field. Okay. Next slide, please. Now, of course, as you know that large developments have taken place in the field of chemistry. Okay, and it all started with the synthesis of ammonia. In fact, what I have done here, listed 5 inventions which changed the world. Okay, these are the 5 inventions. Of course, every invention is important. It's in its own way or in its own right. But if I were to list those 5 inventions which has the most impact, okay, on the life, of the human beings on this planet, these are the 5 inventions. Okay, and the most important is the synthesis of ammonia by reacting 2 simple chemicals, hydrogen and nitrogen. And ammonia is the basis of the fertilizer industry, and which is the basis. That's why the agricultural productivity has gone up. Okay, that's why this process, which was discovered about 110 years, before, assumes a lot of importance. The synthesis of ammonia. Okay, otherwise it would have been very difficult to feed the world. Because world population is growing, the land is limited. So how do we increase the agricultural productivity? Is because of these fertilizers. And then next comes the penicillin, then contraceptive pills, and the liquid crystal display devices. Because of this kind of materials, we are able to communicate now, through this Zoom meeting or this web meeting, etc. Because of the clarity of the pictures. And thanks to these liquid crystal display devices, the molecules which are responsible for the clarity of these pictures. Okay, and what is listed here, the material which was synthesized for the first time by two scientists, Ziegler and Natta, in 1933. This was actually produced in the lab, polyethylene from one of the simplest chemical, that is ethylene, which is one of the cheapest and simplest chemical. And they use some special catalyst and made polyethylene. Okay, so this is considered as one of the those five inventions which has made the difference. Okay, which has impacted the life or which has changed the world forever. Okay, and now polyethylene is such a huge industry, olefin industry, and of course I don't think I need to elaborate further, like the kind of volumes, of polymers which Reliance produces in India. Okay, so you can see, this laboratory invention has turned into a huge industry, polyethylene. And I would like to quote here, Lord Alexander Todd, who was awarded Nobel Prize, for his work on polypeptides. So what he says, I'm inclined to think that the development of polymerization is perhaps the biggest thing that chemistry has done, where it has the biggest effect on everyday life. Okay, we can see, the importance of plastics. Okay, so it is one of those top five inventions that has enabled the modern world. Okay, next slide, please. So this is more of an introduction, just to tell you, how plastics are important. But now let's see, the other side of the coin. Okay, next slide, please. Now it's also important, there are polymers. What I talked about, these are man-made polymers or synthetic polymers, or the polymers which are new to the world, meaning it did not exist in the nature before. So those are called as synthetic materials. Okay, and as you know, in the periodic table there are 118 elements. Okay, and chemists actually make use of these elements, and by carrying out some chemical transformation, they convert these materials, not all of them, but into a wide range of products which are useful to the society. Okay, now of course, like Mother Nature is a great scientist, Mother Nature also produces a range of polymers. Okay, in fact our own bodies are made up of polymers, like polypeptides or DNA. No, these are the chains of amino acids. Okay, and there are large number of polymers which are available in the nature. But then the question is, do we really need these synthetic materials or man-made materials? Okay, and of course they say that need is the mother of invention. Okay, so there was a need of materials which are better than the materials which are available in the nature. Man, because of his curious nature, because of his creativity, has synthesized or has made those newer form of important. Now we talk about these ornaments, or these day-to-day items like buttons, etc. In earlier days, people used to make those, from by ivory of the elephant. Okay, now imagine for today's modern world, if you want to get those kind of products, how many elephants you have to kill? Or in fact, you are not supposed to even kill the elephants. Okay, because they also have a right to live on this planet. Okay, now did is actually he made a semi-synthetic material. Okay, by mixing camphor sulfonic acid with cellulose, and cellulose is and he made a substance which has got the properties similar to the ivory of the elephant. Okay, so it's just the need of the invention. And if you look at the history of developments in the area of polymers or plastic, in fact the second world was the most important, meaning from a different point of view, because that actually triggered the development of so many synthetic polymers. Okay, and then here I just give another example of a industry which uses synthetic polymers. As you know, for electrical industry we definitely need insulators. Okay, days people used to make these insulators by killing these bugs. Shellac actually, India was the largest producer of. For today's modern world, how many bugs we'll have to kill to get the shellac? Okay, so that's where this Leo Baekeland, by using some simple of chemistry, and as you know, the organic molecule contain covalent bond. They are bad conductors or insulators. So he made this plastic material, okay, by reacting two simple chemicals which are available in any undergraduate laboratory like phenol and formaldehyde, and made a polymer which has a resin actually, And it actually is, this material is now more than 110 years old. Like I said, this is the first ever synthetic polymer made by man on this earth. And it is credited to Leo Baekeland. And this material is more than 110 years old now, but finds 1,000 applications. So this is the something in history which we should know. Like, we cannot indefinitely depend on the natural materials. Of course, they are available in abundance. They are biodegradable. Most of the natural polymers are biodegradable. But if you want to get certain unique properties, okay, so that the materials can be used under extreme conditions, you definitely need synthetic materials. So this is the origin, or this is the motivation to develop synthetic polymers. Okay, the materials which can be made by taking elements from the earth's crust, and then convert them into some organic chemicals, building blocks, and convert them into the high molecular polymers or macromolecules. Okay, so that's the whole basis of this huge industry. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now the question is, there are so many materials available. When we talk about the structural materials, you have so many choices, like right from the wood, glass, metal. But then the polymers score over all these other materials, and the reason being, these are some of the attributes of synthetic polymers, because they are the preferred class of materials. First and foremost, is the attractive cost to performance ratio. You can get a better performance at the lower cost. That's why the plastic bag is preferred, because you get a better performance at a lower cost. They are lighter weight. That's why they find a lot of applications in automobile industry or in packaging industry. They have high strength to weight ratio. In fact, some of the polymers like aramids, which are the aromatic polyamides, they are stronger than steel. They have excellent mechanical properties. They are resistant to chemical corrosion and weathering, unlike metals. Metals undergo corrosion or weathering. Polymers are inert. In fact, many of these polymers are used even in cookware, like polytetrafluoroethylene, and they are easy to process. Using injection molding machine or extrusion, you can make items like the button of the shirt. Buttons of the shirt to wings of the aeroplane. So these kind of complex shape can be made by simple, easy processability techniques. Okay, and one can, of course, make these polymers from various sources like oil, coal, gas, and biomass. And you can vary the properties over a wide range, because the repeat unit of the polymer, which is a characteristic of any polymer, determines the properties. Okay, so you can vary the properties. Like I said, you can have soft polymer to a polymer which withstand very high temperatures. Okay, so that's why these are the attributes of polymers. That's why they find preference compared to the other materials of construction. Okay. Next slide, please.
Palama.
Yeah, now you can see here, plastics actually save energy. Plastics materials are resource efficient. I mean, I have to qualify this statement, by giving you some example. And plastics in use save energy because they do more with less. The fuel economy. When the vehicle is made lighter, in fact, definitely there is a fuel efficiency. So plastics in use save energy, and plastics in use reduce emissions. Okay, so less energy, less emission. You can see that's why the polymers are widely used, in fact, in automobile industry, because of their lighter weight and excellent mechanical properties. Okay, in fact, they are the saver of energy. In fact, many times people associate plastics with pollution, but you can see there's a less emission, there's less uses of energy. Okay, next slide, please. I would just like to show this picture. And if you ask a common man in the street, he always, like I said, associate plastics with which is a threat to the environment. Okay, but it is like, if you are asked to explain to a blindfolded person how the elephants looks like, the one who touches the back will say it's like a wall. The one who touches the tail will say it is like a rod. Okay, this is what with the description of a person will be based on his or her experience. So everybody is right in their own way, but actually the answer is something different. The elephant has a different shape, but the one who touches the tail will say it's like a rod. Okay, so this is how the plastics the one who experiences, or has taken the benefit of plastics will say plastic is a saver. Like if you ask those nurses or those medical doctors, they will say plastics are very, very important class of materials. But those who actually get to see the pollution, or those who get to see the, environmental disasters, they will say plastics are bad. Okay. So as a scientist, I think, we should have a 360-degree view. That's why, these answers are subjective, but actually the truth is something different. Okay. So plastics, I hope I was able to convince you. It's very difficult to imagine, a modern world without the use of plastics. Of course, this has to be taken with a pinch of salt, meaning there are certain issues which are associated with the plastics, and which I'm going to share with you in the next, some few slides. Okay. Can you move to the next slide, please, Sriramji? Next slide, please. Just previous one. Previous. Go back, please go back. I think this picture again speaks for itself, so I don't think I need to further elaborate. If we decide to, put a complete ban on the use of plastics, probably we'll have to go to this kind of lifestyle, of the caveman lifestyle. And you can see on the right hand side of the picture this modern lifestyle, those warm clothes, the fancy cars, okay, the air conditioned buildings, all this is possible with plastics. And if you decide to put a ban on the complete use of the plastics, this will be the, lifestyle. So basically what the message I want to tell you, it is difficult to imagine, modern life without the use of plastics. Okay. Now the question is, how do we make these, plastics more sustainable? I think that's not the answer, to put a ban on the uses of plastic. But there are certain issues which have been associated with, excessive or indiscriminate use of the plastics. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about, those two important themes, like resource utilization and waste minimization. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah, now let's look at the other side of the plastic. Okay. The bad and the ugly side of the plastic. Okay. Next slide, please. Next. Now, this is what you get to see when we walk in the street. Okay. Plastic littered everywhere. Okay. And the plastic actually has contaminated not only the land, but also our oceans, our rivers, and also in the space, there is a lot of debris. So you can see it has been completely polluted. Okay. And this is, I call them as dirty pictures. Of course, I think I'll just, because for the want of time, I'll rush through few of the slides. But this plastic ocean, actually, it's a question of whether, plastic or planet. I mean, this is the kind of debate which we are actually confronting with. And this Pacific Ocean actually has turned into a plastic ocean, meaning there is so much of plastic which has been dumped into this ocean, and it has become like a plastic ocean, and it has caused danger to the aquatic life. Okay. And I'm going to tell you in the next few slides. Please move to the next slide, please. This is something, which we use day in and day out, these water bottles. But today it's very difficult to imagine, modern life without the use of these PET bottles. Okay. Now you see, every second we throw about 1,500 of PET bottles. Okay. And over 30 billion liters of bottled water is consumed annually. You see the kind of numbers. Okay. And this puts a lot of stress on the resources, because nothing comes free, in this world. Because when we use this plastic bottle, they are made from certain chemicals like dimethyl terephthalate, ethylene glycol, and they are, these dimethyl terephthalate, ethylene glycol, they come from petrochemical resources. Okay. So such a valuable resource, actually, and that's what, single-use plastic, what we call about, we just use this bottle only once and just dump into the environment. Okay. And the kind of consumption, or at the rate at which we are using, actually is really threatening. You can see the kind of numbers you are seeing here. Okay. So the question is, what is the solution to this problem? Next slide, please. And of course, what the plastics can do, I think this picture, I think, speaks for itself, choking up the rivers or choking up the, canals. And that's what actually, the plastics actually, this discussion actually triggered because of this, what happened, on July 26, 2005, in Mumbai. Okay. And people actually associated this danger with the plastic, Okay, and that's what actually caused government to put a ban on the usage of plastic. Next slide, please. Now another question, I just want to highlight here. But they say that plastics are durable materials. They have these weathering properties, and there's no corrosion, etc. That's why they are preferred class of materials. But what happens, when the intended use of plastic is over, we just dump it into the environment. Okay, and the friends, I just want to tell you the statistic here or some numbers. Only 2% of the packaging plastics are subjected to closed loop recycling. In fact, they say that the first ever toothbrush which was used by man must be lying somewhere, after its use was over. This is the kind of problem. In fact, they say, the waste may bury us now. In fact, the kind of waste we are generating, in fact, if we start accumulating, and like I said, we produce 350 million tons of plastic every year. This industry is growing at the rate of 10% per annum. So all of that plastic, up to single-use plastic, actually remains in the environment. So they, in fact, day is not very far. If we keep on continuing, the consumption at the rate at which we are doing it, there will be no place for the humans to live on this planet. Okay, so that's the kind of magnitude of the problem is. Next slide, please. Now, I already told you that the Pacific Ocean is actually referred to as a plastic ocean. Okay. In fact, they say that by 2050 there will be more plastic in the ocean than the fish. You can see here, 2000, 2025, and this is a projection. In fact, there will be more plastic in the ocean than the weight of the fish. Okay. Now people are looking at uh, the oceans as the source of food. Because we can just simply grow the food on the earth, okay, you meaning on the soil. But we need to look for alternative sources for food, and oceans are actually considered as the next factories. For chemicals or for medicines or even for food. But if we keep on dumping so much of plastic, in fact, the weight of plastic will overtake the weight of the fish. So this is the kind of magnitude, the problem which I would just want to share with you. Next slide, please. I think I just already talked about this, so I will not just elaborate further. Next slide. So I already told you like how plastics are useful and what are the kind of issues which these plastics have created. Of course, as you know that every chemical is inherently unsafe. Even what we talk about water as the universal solvent. Okay, it's a environmentally benign solvent. But if water is taken in excess, that also can cause problem to the human health. We talk about sugar. We enjoy eating sweets, but if we take sugar in excess, it causes diabetes or it causes again some health issues. Okay, so one has to also have that kind of respect or understanding about what chemicals we use in our day-to-day life. Okay, of course there are some threshold limits, so I will not get into all those issues. But every chemical, for that matter, is unsafe. Okay, and polymers are no exceptions because polymers or plastics are made up of certain chemicals. Okay, now what I have shown here just one simple example of bisphenol. This is the darling monomer of polymer chemist because the range of plastics, high performance plastics are based on bisphenol A. And the best well-known examples are epoxy resins, which is a household name now. I don't think I need to tell further about the uses of epoxy resins, polycarbonates, polyesters, polyether sulfone. But this bisphenol A, and actually why there is so much of preference to use bisphenol, because it is made from two simple chemicals, acetone and phenol. Okay, that's why it is called as bisphenol A. But people have found that this is an endocrine disruptor. Okay, like of course I shown you that this is a precursor to so many products. But this is the problem with bisphenol A. So any trace amount of ppm or parts per billion level of bisphenol, if it is actually contaminated with milk, say like because bisphenol A based polycarbonate bottles are used for feeding baby milk to the babies. Okay, for water storage bottles, these containers, they are made up of polycarbonate. If bisphenol A leaches out into the water, okay, into the milk, it can cause these kind of health hazards. Okay, that's why now polymer chemists, of course, have learned this by experience by developing some modern analytical tools. So in fact, now bisphenol A is under scrutiny. It's being phased out. In fact, there are so many such chemicals, or the monomers or the building blocks, which are either being banned or will be banned in the future. Okay, so bisphenol is one of the prime example because a large section of the polymer industry depends on bisphenol A, but this has got this health issues. Okay, next slide, please. Now this PVC, pipes, polyvinyl chloride. Uh, I'll just move to the next slide, please. And of course, PVC is a very difficult polymer to process, meaning to convert it into those shapes, pipes, etc. Because it's a hard plastic. Again, I will not get into all those details, but one has to add so many additives or processing aids to convert PVC into the pipes. Okay, and what are those, additives which are used, like plasticizers, heat stabilizers, dyes, fillers, light stabilizer, antioxidants, flame retardant, etc. But in fact, PVC per se is not bad because PVC bags are used actually for storage of blood. If you go to the blood bank, you will see that the blood is stored in the PVC bags. Okay. In fact, our shoe soles are made up of PVC. The pipes which carry water are made up of PVC. So PVC as a polymer, it's not volatile. But if there is any other additives, like plasticizers, heat stabilizers, they are the ones who cause the problem. Okay. Next slide, please. What happens, if PVC is burnt or if it is incinerated, okay, and there are of course those cyclization reaction and decomposition reactions, and finally it gets converted into these kind of aromatic chemicals, chlorinated dioxins, they are called as. That's why PVC is actually considered as a big bad brother of plastics, because it causes lots of problem. Okay, recycling of PVC, that's why difficult. That's why it has been banned in many parts of the world, and of course people are looking at bio-based plasticizers, rather than depending on the phthalate plasticizers which are currently used. Okay, next slide, please. Next. Yeah, and that's why you see that there are lots of pressures on plastic or polymer industry because of this environmental legislation, escalating cost of waste disposal. Because in the earlier days, the norm was up the chimney and down the river. That was the norm. Like this how the waste was processed in the earlier days. But in the current times, those things are not acceptable. The environmental laws are getting stricter, and of course, there is a decrease in the image and trust, because of these kind of incidences like bisphenol A or PVC. So there is a lot of pressure, on the polymer industry from public, customers, employees, shareholders, non-government organization, and governments. So let's admit or let's accept that our relationship with plastic is is kind of a love and hate. We definitely want those plastics, but we also hate them, because of those ill effects or those issues which are associated with the excessive use of plastics or indiscriminate use of the plastics. Okay, next slide, please. So, what next? Uh, so I would like to just quote here, Professor Abdul Kalam, and he has nicely put it, what is the secret of success is to make the right decisions. Okay, then how do you take the right decisions? Okay, because you cannot, if you are a novice, if you don't know anything, then you cannot take the right decisions. So you need experience to take the right decisions. Okay, and how do you get the experience? By making some wrong decisions. Unless you take some decisions, you don't know what is right or what is wrong. Okay, so this is important. And I think over these 110 years of history of polymer science or the plastic industry, we know what are those mistakes which polymer industry has made, knowingly or unknowingly. Okay. Now, with all of these experience, now polymer chemist industry is poised to take the right decisions. Okay, so we will be avoiding all those ill effects, uses of all those chemicals which are cause problem to the human health. Okay, but also let us also not forget that there is the risk in taking no risk. We have to take a calculated risk. Like what we are doing currently in the dealing with COVID-19. Though single-use plastic was banned, last year, but again it has come in the limelight because there is a risk, of course, in using those single-use plastics. But now, if you don't take that risk, okay, there is a risk again. That's why there is a risk in taking no risk. So we have to definitely take a calculated risk and see what is better, okay. That's why I put here, a total unwillingness to take risks will result in stagnation and lack of progress in important areas of sustainability. Okay. Imagine, if this Wright brother had not taken the first flight. Okay. Now, flying is so safe nowadays. Okay. With so many flights take off, from various airports in the various part of the, world. But you hardly get to, hear about the accidents which happen in the flight. Okay. Now, had this Wright brother not taken that risk, we would not have made this kind of progress. So that's why I think, it's important to take those calculated risks if you want to make a progress. But like I said, backed up with this 110 years of experience, I think polymer chemistry, chemists are actually confident, and therefore there's a lot of work which is happening both in academic laboratories and in the industrial research laboratories, and making polymers greener and making the polymers which are safer to use. Okay, and I will show you some examples in the next few slides. Yeah, please next slide, please. And what polymer chemistry industry is marching, is towards the concept of sustainability. Okay, I think most of the professors know the meaning of sustainability. That is meeting the needs of present generation without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. That's what the concept of sustainability is, and of course, it is in tune with the nature. Okay, we don't cause harm to the environment. As you know, we are putting a lot of pressure. I mean, on the resources and all of these. I'll show you in the next slide, please. Next slide, please. We'll see how polymer chemists are adapting and making the processes greener or safer. Next slide, please. Now, like I said, ethylene is the one of the simplest monomer or most widely used monomer in polymer industry. Now, the question is, where do these building blocks come from? Basically, again, we depend on the crude oil or petroleum resources, for all of those monomers or feedstocks. Okay. And you can see this is the distribution of the usage of the pattern, how it is used by crude oil. Like energy industry share is 31%, transportation industry is 33%, and chemical industry actually makes use of 10% of the crude oil. Okay. Out of that, 6% is used by the polymer industry. But the bad news is, this coal, petroleum, they are limited resources. Okay, they are non-renewable resources, and scientists have predicted that in the next 100 to 300 years, the natural gas, coal, petroleum, it will disappear. These are all finite resources, and the rate at which we are consuming, these resources, there will be no petrol, there will be no coal, there will be no natural gas, after 300 years. That's why we have to look for alternate resources to get those basic building blocks. Next slide, please. It's not only for the chemical industry, but also for the other industries, So basically, when we talk about plastic industry, it's a petroleum industry, basically, it's a petroleum refinery. That's why Reliance is actually into the business of making plastics, because it's the largest petrochemical industry in India, And all these fuels, solvent, bulk chemicals, fibers, oils, they all come from petroleum as the origin. And these are the 7 basic building blocks. Like, I will not get into all those details, but from these 7 basic building blocks, you can make all those chemicals. Okay, next slide, please. Sriramji, how much time do I have? Then accordingly, I will just see what I can cover. You are muted.
Up to 11:30, you can continue.
Okay, fine. I'll just skip this. Next. Next, please. Now I just switch the gear and talk about the greener polymers. Okay. Now, yeah, I'll just talk about greener, meaning environmentally friendly. How can you make the polymers environmentally friendly? Next. Now, so far I just talked about those synthetic materials. Now let's see what are those issues and concerns with the synthetic materials. So we have been actually excessively dependent on these finite natural resources, that is coal, petroleum, and natural gas. And all these chemicals are actually man-made synthetic polymers or man-made chemicals. They persist in the environment. Like I said about the toothbrush, it doesn't degrade. Okay, these plastics remain in the environment. That's why there is a risk, and risk is actually directly related to exposure. And also there are certain chemicals, like I said, vinyl chloride or bisphenol A, those are hazardous chemicals. Now, there is a risk, involved in handling those type of chemicals. Now, the question is, can the material needs, meaning, of course, polymers included in materials of man be based on the concept of sustainability of both the resources and the environment? Okay. So the research has actually begun in the last 20, 30 years along these lines. How can use the concept of sustainability, green chemistry, and make the polymers, safer rather than depending infinitely on the natural resources. Like I said, we have made a transition from natural polymers to semi-synthetic or synthetic polymers. But the resources which were used to make those synthetic polymers were non-renewable. Now the question is, do we have a non-stop or continuous supply of these resources so that this becomes sustainable? Like I said, meeting the needs of today, present generation without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. So that's what the concept of sustainability is. And if you don't allow the polymers to persist in the environment, means can we recycle those polymers? So research is happening, in all these two fronts basically. Next slide, please. Now, I already mentioned that Mother Nature is a great scientist. Okay, so we have to go back and check how Mother Nature produces all those polymers or chemicals. And what I have shown, here comparison, like the synthetic polymer industry, there's a mistake here. It's a 350 million tons per year industry. Okay, but take a look at the amount of polymers. The quantity of polymers which are produced in the nature. It's 150 billion tons per year industry. Okay, cellulose, lignin, these are all natural polymers, and in the 150 billion tons are produced every year. But this industry, like, so if you so-called, is completely free of pollution. There is absolutely no pollution in the nature. Okay, and how does nature do it? Because there are no unintended chemicals. Okay, and there are recycle mechanisms in the place. As you know, plants take carbon dioxide. Okay, and by the wonderful photosynthesis reaction, we just need sunlight. The carbon dioxide is converted into carbohydrates, okay, which is used as a food. Again, like I said, spectacular progress or amazing progress has been made in the field of chemistry, but still we do not produce food in the laboratory. We have to depend on the nature only to get our food, okay, food which we need, for feeding ourselves. Of course, there are some examples like people have made meat in the laboratory, but it will not have the same taste. So what I want to tell you, we depend on the nature for food. Okay, and of course, nature also produces so many chemicals. Okay, so many polymers. But like I said earlier, we can't derive those kind of properties which we need, to use the polymers under extreme environmental conditions. That's why we need, synthetic polymers. Okay, and in the nature there are feedback mechanism, like the waste of one creature becomes food for the other creature. Like our waste, CO2 becomes food for the plants, and plant produce the food which we eat. Okay, so that's why there are recycle mechanisms in the nature. That's why there is absolutely no pollution. But when we produce chemicals or those building blocks or polymers in the factories, what happens? There are many unintended byproducts. Of course, there are teachers here, so I don't need to tell. Like there are up to hardly few reactions, except rearrangement reactions, which are highly atom efficient. Many of the reactions, when you want to convert A to B, there is always formation of some C or some D, which is called as byproduct or the side product. Okay, and now this side product has no value. It's just a wasteful reaction. Okay, so that's why these becomes a waste, and this becomes a burden on the environment. So when we produce chemicals in the factories, there are many wasteful reactions, or there are many side reactions which are actually happening. Okay, and that's where again the concept of green chemistry comes in, like to develop atom efficient, routes. Okay, next slide, please. This is just the 12 principles of green chemistry, like prevent waste. Me and Professor Suresh Umre is going to give, I think, a talk on green chemistry, so I will not elaborate, or I will not dwell much on this. But you can see when we talk about manufacturing of polymers, we need to consider all these steps. Like actually all those building blocks come from petroleum resources. So there is extraction and refining involved. And then these commodity chemicals are converted into monomers like styrene, adipic acid, ethylene, etc. The monomers are polymerized, and then the polymers are seldom used as they are produced. They have to be actually processed to convert into the desired shape, into the desired article, using those all processing techniques and the products. And then once the intended use is over, we have to reuse them or dispose them off. Okay, so this is what is called as the cradle to grave cycle. Okay, and there is always a scope, to make all of these steps greener or all of these steps safer. And when I say greener or safer means we have to adhere to this sorry 12 principles of green chemistry. Okay, now we'll see what polymer chemists are trying to do in the next few slides. Next slide, please. This is one, a simple example I have chosen from the textbook. This is a standard well-known reaction. There will be oxidation like ketone using metachloropurbenzoic acid to lactone. And the lactones are very important monomers to make polycaprolactone, which is used in biomedical applications. But you see here, in fact, not much thought was given in the earlier days, because people were interested only in getting the products. But you actually convert this valuable chemical, metachloropurbenzoic acid, into 3-chlorobenzoic acid as the byproduct. So this is not an atom efficient reaction. Okay. So what scientists are trying to do in the laboratory and in industry is, use the same starting material, that is cyclohexanone, but use hydrogen peroxide as the oxidant. Okay. In the presence of a zeolite catalyst, and convert that into lactone, and the byproduct here is water, which is environmentally benign. So these are the kind of processes which are being developed to make the monomers by greener route. Next slide, please. This is another route, adipic acid. And as you know, N2O is one of the greenhouse gases. Okay? And adipic acid, and of course, all these polymers are commodity chemicals basically. When we talk about nylon 6, nylon 66, unlike drugs or pharmaceutical, which are produced in smaller quantities because the consumption is not so much high. But when we talk about polymers, they are produced in ton quantities. So adipic acid production is one of the major source of N2O. Okay? And now in the adipic acid, now companies like Solutia, they have developed a route where the N2O is recycled, and used actually for hydrosilation reaction of benzene. So these are the kind of technologies which are being developed. So no, these harmful gases are released into the environment. Next. Now this polycarbonate, I told you like bisphenol A is the darling monomer of polymer chemist, and actually it is the basis of this industry, like polycarbonate, which is one of those high performance polymers. But it is actually made by using phosgene in the laboratory. I mean in the industry. But as you know, there was an accident happened in Bhopal in 1984. In fact, it is considered as the black day in the history of chemistry, and I think that's why phosgene has come under limelight. So people are trying to see whether you can make the polycarbonate by avoiding phosgene. Okay, or the solvents like dichloromethane, which also ozone depletion is a cause of ozone depletion, and then polycarbonate is contaminated chlorine impurities. So these are some of the issues associated with this standard method of making polycarbonate in the industry using phosgene. Next slide will see next slide, please. Sriramji, next slide. Yeah, now you can use this diphenyl carbonate as the source of carbonate linkage, and this reaction is done under mild conditions, meaning there is no use of solvent, no use of dangerous chemicals like phosgene. Eliminates the use of dichloromethane, and you get a high quality polycarbonate because you don't need to precipitate it. Okay, so these are kind of processes which are being developed to make polycarbonates without using those harmful chemicals like dichloromethane, phosgene, etc. Okay, these are few some examples. Next. Now that's like how you can avoid the use of those dangerous chemicals. Now let me come back to the main core subject. These fossil resources. And I just want to give you some numbers here. You can see here the formation of fossil resources takes a long time. Okay, it takes more than 10 raised to 6 years, okay, to form these fossil resources: coal, natural gas, petroleum. Okay? And what we do in chemical industry is take these fossil resources and convert them into chemicals, polymers, and fuels. Okay, and maybe the intended use could be minimum of 1 year to maximum of say 10 years. So what we do, we take these polymers, chemicals, and fuels, and finally it ends up into carbon dioxide. This is what I tell the most wasteful reaction. Such a high precious source which takes 10 days to 6 years to form. The petroleum coal. What we humans do is we take these precious chemicals and convert them into products. Finally it ends up into carbon dioxide within only 1 to 10 years. Okay, so this is definitely not a value proposition. Of course we derive value out of these products which we use, but then finally it ends up into carbon dioxide, which is also causes global warming, and it's a wasteful reaction of these precious resource. Now what these poor plants do, or the they take carbon dioxide and convert that into carbohydrates, like I said, using this wonderful reaction, photosynthesis reaction. But for this what you need is the sunlight. Okay, so that's why they say as long as sun will be there, these renewables will be there, meaning these plants will be there and they will keep producing annually, unlike these non-renewable resources. Okay, now the $1 million question is, can we take this biomass? Of course, like I said, we depend for food on the plants. So there are of course agricultural waste products which are found in the agro processing industry. So can we take those agricultural waste products and by using some transformations, chemical transformations, or biochemical transformation, convert those agricultural waste products into polymers, chemicals, and fuels. Okay, that's why we are talking about biodiesel, bioethanol. So the entire industry is looking at agricultural waste product as the source of chemical, so that we don't depend on these finite resources, okay, which are scarce. They are depleting. The prices are also going up. And like I said, the mother nature is actually a great scientist. They produce a lot of chemicals and they are available to us. It's a gift to the mankind. So can we take all those chemicals and convert into the building blocks what we need? So that's the kind of the research direction which people are taking nowadays. I mean, in the last 20-30 years, working on these kind of problems. Okay, next slide please. Next slide please, Ramji. Now this just to give you a number, like I said, nature produces a huge amount of polymers. So likewise, there are so many agricultural waste products like lignocellulose, cellulose, natural fibers, polysaccharides, fats, and oil, non-edible oils, proteins, and can we derive the monomer? So and so this is called as a biorefinery concept. Moving from petro refinery to biorefinery. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, just to give you some principle here, like what we do in petrochemical industry is take these hydrocarbons, basically the naphtha, and then convert it into aromatic chemicals, say like paraxylene, and then paraxylene is oxidized to terephthalic acid. This is a building block for PET, polyester. So this is what petrochemical industry does: is you take the hydrocarbons and oxidize into functional molecules so that they can be used as a monomers for polymers. But what we do in plant, when we derive these chemicals from plant, because as you know, the carbohydrate, they are overly functionalized. There are many functional groups which are present. So we need to defunctionalize these molecules, okay, like carbohydrates, sugars, etc., and convert them into chemicals like furan dicarboxylic acid. So this is something very, it's a mimic of terephthalic acid. Okay, these are the kind of molecules which we can derive from nature, based on biochemicals. Next slide, please. Of course, it's not only a laboratory curiosity. Like I said, the research happens actually in stages. Initially, it is only a curiosity-driven research. Then the companies take it, forward. So you can see here, a lot of companies, and these names, some of the names might be familiar to you, like BASF, one of the major companies in Germany. They are also looking at, monomers, polymers, additives based on biorenewables, like Evonik, DSM, Cargill, Procter and Gamble. So a lot of companies are actually looking. In fact, the company DuPont, they have made an announcement that 50% of their chemicals will come from biochemical sources. So likewise, most of the companies actually have made this announcement that the chemicals what they will use for making the products which we need on day-to-day basis or advanced materials will be made from biochemical sources. Okay, next slide please. Just to give you an example, see, polyethylene, like I said, it comes from ethylene, which comes from petroleum resources. The same ethylene monomer can be produced from molasses. You can see here, molasses fermentation give ethanol, and again the rest of the steps are same, like catalytic dehydration to ethylene and polyethylene and ethylene glycol, which are the two important monomers of polymer industry. And the commercial research of cane sugar. They have a lot of molasses, so there is a technology available. And in India, we have a company called India Glycols. In Uttar Pradesh, they make ethylene glycol from molasses. So you are seeing already such examples happening. Companies are taking these issue seriously and deriving those chemicals from bio sources. Right? Next slide, please. I think I just have 15 minutes, so I will just quickly rush through some of the slides. Now you can see here, the terephthalic acid can be made from limonene. And Nagpur people, I don't think I need to tell the importance of this orange. You can see from the waste, from the peel of the orange, you can get those chemicals like limonene, which can be converted into terephthalic acid. Okay, so these are the kind of process, and there's a lot of scope. You can see here to derive the chemicals which are presently produced from petrochemical industry, but by switching to agricultural waste product as the source. Next slide, please. Then castor oil, of course, this is another polymer like equivalent to polyethylene terephthalate, that is polypropylene terephthalate, and the propylene glycol comes from biosources. So DuPont has actually produced this polymer, commercialized, like Sorona PPT, which is called as PPT, which is used in textile, flooring, coating, nano, engineering polymer, etc. Next slide, please. Now this castor oil based, nylon 6, like I showed you an example of adipic acid, which comes from petrochemical sources. But you can make another variety of nylon that is called as polyamide 11, which comes from castor oil. And India is the largest producer of castor oil, and it actually basically contains this, methyl disulfonate. From that you can get 11 amino undecanoic acid. Then polymerization gives a special grade of nylon, and it finds a lot of applications. Okay, so this is also a commercial reality. And there's a company in France, which produces this polymer under trade name Rislan. Yes, next slide, please. Now this is something, a lot of attention is paid now to develop PET look-alike polymer, okay, based on furan dicarboxylic acid, which comes from biochemical sources. And here there is a comparison of the properties, and there are companies like Aventium, which has put in a lot of efforts in research and development. And this is actually close to a commercial reality now. Okay, polyethylene terephthalate, and even CSIR, National Chemical Laboratory also is working on these kind of projects to develop technologies for making those aliphatic aromatic polyesters like PEF, which is equivalent to PET, or so in a way little better than PET, but they are from petrochemical resources. I mean, sorry, bio resources. So, next slide, please. Yeah, I saw somebody has posted a question on biodegradable polymers. We can see this lactic acid, which comes from corn, and there is a company, they have introduced this product.
We will take all the questions after your talk is over.
So this is a biodegradable polymer. Of course, it's not truly biodegradable, but it is, I would say, biocompostable, polymer, that is polylactic acid, which comes from lactic acid converted into lactide. I will not get into all those details, but this comes from corn, lactic acid, and this polymer used in packaging applications. This is what is called as biodegradable bags, what are sold in the grocery stores, and Suppose India also some work has been done on developing technology for polylactic acid. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So just take a little pause here and tell you actually what is the reality about plastics. So polymers are, of course, I think we all agree now that polymers are indispensable part of modern life and are the most important class of materials today. They are called actually considered as advanced materials. Okay. Now, wide array of industries are made possible by use of polymeric materials. Like when you talk about communication industry, automobile industry, it will not exist, without the use of plastics or polymers. And that's why newer and newer polymeric materials and new processes will play crucial roles in solving the global challenges. Like world is facing problems like energy, water, food security. All these problems can be tackled by making use of newer versions of polymeric material. That's why the field of polymer science is wide open and very promising. So people, when we talk about recyclable plastics, okay, so they are possible both from bio sources and from petrochemical sources, and they represent the sustainable use of fossil and green carbon source. Okay, so when we talk about monomers coming from green resources or agricultural waste product, what we are talking about is the carbon neutral economy, meaning we are not wasting those. Okay, and for many years to come, petrochemical industry and bio-based plastics will coexist and play a prominent role in the development of sustainable and cost-effective materials, just meeting the needs of modern society. This is what the reality of plastic is. So with this, I'll just talk to you about some of our work which was done in our laboratory uh, in response to this call. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next. Next. Now, before that, I just want to give introduction. I mean, when we talk about polymers, there are different grades to, so to say, like commodity plastics, high performance plastics, engineering plastics. And here I have just listed some of the examples like of aromatic polymers, step growth polymers, like aromatic polyamides, polyamides, polyesters. They exhibit high temperature properties, high mechanical properties because of the aromatic structures. But this is the cause of the problem, meaning these polymers are not easily processable. You cannot convert them into different shapes by conventional techniques. So next slide. So what polymer chemists do is to take recourse to this principles of macromolecular engineering, meaning if you have a rigid rod like polymer which is shown on the top, which is like a brick, it just doesn't it's like a stone, you cannot process it, it cannot dissolve it. So if you introduce those kind of flexible linkages, it introduces the freedom of rotation in the polymer chain, and these are the various approaches which polymer chemists take to make these polymer processes. The reason I'm showing this, so that you can appreciate the kind of work which we have done, in terms of the design of monomers. So you introduce these kind of functional groups into monomers so that the polymers can become processable. Next slide, please. Next slide. I think it's just repetition. Next slide, please. Next. Next. I think I'll just skip this. No, I think I don't know. Yeah. Now you can see here. Just go back one slide. Now this I'm sure most of you know what is a cashew nut shell. Cashew fruit. And there is an oil, which is a waste product of the cashew processing industry. Okay, and this is India specific, meaning India is the third largest producer of cashew nut shell liquid. Okay, we produce that to the tune of 750,000 tons per annum. Okay, and the world availability is about you can see the numbers here, and it's a very cheap material, agricultural waste product. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next. Like any other natural product. Just previous slide. Previous. Like any other natural product, it's a complex mixture. And what the important point here, is basically it is one of the rich sources of aromatic chemicals, like phenol. And what I've shown here, I'll not get into all those details, but from a chemist perspective, what is important is it has got those three functional groups, reactive sites, meaning the phenolic hydroxyl group, the electron-rich aromatic ring, ortho position and para position, and the double bonds in the side chain. So This is like again a very textbook type of chemistry, and we have exploited the reactive sites of this 3-pentadecynyl phenol. Okay, and you can see in the next slide. Next slide, please. You can see here, with using some textbook organic reactions, we have converted this agricultural waste product into very useful monomers like diisocyanate, diamines, which are of prime importance to make a range of polymers. Next slide, please. I will just skip this. It's too much of chemistry. I will show you in one slide. Next, and then the polymers were synthesized. Next. You can see here. We have prepared a range of high performance, high temperature polymers.
Sir, I think we need to conclude in next 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah, that's why I'm rushing. Maybe next slide. Next. Yeah, you can see here. Just go back. Previous slide. Sriramji, you can see here. We starting from a single precursor, that is 3-pentadecynyl phenol. 6 of my PhD students have worked on this topic, and we have made actually very significant contributions to the field of bio-based monomers. Okay, like I said, world is looking at alternate resources of monomers. So we are moving away from petrochemical resources and made a range of aromatic chemicals. So whatever polymer chemist asks for, in terms of the monomers, we have made all those kind of monomers and range of polymers. Of course, this is a work of 6 of my PhD students. This is work. So a lot of efforts have gone into making those monomers in the pure form, making high molecular polymers, establishing structure property relationship. So this has really proved to be a very fruitful area of research for us. We have a strong patent portfolio in this area. We were also invited to write a book chapter, 6 PhD thesis. The point I just want to tell you, here, using some simple principles of organic transformations, okay, using agricultural waste product, which is a non-edible oil, okay, we have exploited that. We have done valorization, value addition to this agricultural waste product, and made the range of monomers. Now these are all drop-in substitutes, meaning these are, of course, right now they are not very cost effective compared to petrochemical, because presently the oil is cheap. But like I said, a day is not very far, when there will be no oil. And in that case, this will come handy. So we have now technologies available with us, patent position for CSIR, wherein we can convert this agricultural waste product into useful monomers and useful polymers. So this is more of a futuristic. Okay, next slide, please. These are the advantages. Of course, we have mapped all the structure property relationship, and these are the certain advantages what you get by introducing those specialty monomers. Next. So of course, this is a book chapter. Now let me quickly, within 2-3 minutes, also summarize about another important contribution which we have made to the area of bio-based monomers. Okay. Now lignin, I'm sure it is agriculture. Most of you know what it is, but from chemist point of view, it contains all these functional molecules, like vanillic acid, vanillin, all those compounds containing hydroxy and carboxy groups. Okay, so those can be exploited by using again simple, organic transformations. Next slide, please. You can see this, my student Sachin Kuire, former student, now who is presently working with Pidilite Corporation. He reacted these 2 simple chemicals. And I already talked at length about the problems which are posed by bisphenol A. It's endocrine disruptor derived from petrochemical. But we have introduced a new to the world molecule. Here you can see here a bisphenol molecule has been made by reacting 2 simple chemicals, furfural-aldehyde and syringol. Okay. Now this is just not yet another bisphenol, and it adheres to all the principles of green chemistry. It's atom economic reaction, no use of solvent, only water is used as the solvent, and made a new bisphenol, with a pendant clickable group. So this pendant phenyl group has got certain advantages. For the want of time, I will not be able to get into all those details. But this is a molecule which nature has somehow forgotten to make. But I think Sachin was smarter than nature. Sometimes human beings are smarter than nature. Like I said, nature is mother nature is a great scientist, but he was able to synthesize this in the laboratory, adhering to all the principles of green chemistry, and made a molecule which is highly desired molecule, a monomer for biopolymer industry. Okay, that's why we have filed a world patent on this. So we have the process ready to make this bisphenol from two simple chemicals. Next. And not only that, of course, we have again, it's just a matter of your imagination or creativity, and we have made a range of molecules, and you can see here diisocyanates using simple reaction steps in high overall yield. Next slide. I'll just show you only the concluding slide of this section. You can see next. You can see now previous. Previous slide. Sriramji, previous. You can see like what I showed on that cashew nut shell liquid, we have made a range of monomers, whatever they are desired by polymer chemists. So likewise, using this lignin-based aromatics, we have made 23 new monomers. This is a part of PhD thesis of Dr. Sachin Kuire. You can see again wonderful disposition of monomers. Okay, so lignin-based aromatics were exploited to make difunctional monomers, and a range of polymers were prepared from that. So this is actually the imagination. The power of imagination or power of creativity. Like using simple principles of organic chemistry, he has made a range of monomers. Okay, so this is our contribution to renewable exploitation of renewable resources to make those monomers, which are green processes. And these are just like I said, not yet another class of monomers, but monomers with some special structural features and monomers which can impart some special properties to the polymers, or address the issues of processability, solubility, opportunities for chemical modification by using this pendant viral group. Okay. Yeah, next. So with this, I think I will take a pause because there are a lot of efforts actually happening in the area of plastic waste management. So when people talk about what do we do with all of this plastic, the technologies are being developed to repurpose. Like how people are talking about repurposing of drugs. You can repurpose these polymers and convert them into either energy. And in the Nagpur itself, Raisoni College, they have a technology to convert waste plastic into oil. Likewise, you can put these used plastic for reuse, and there is a program also which CSR has undertaken to recycle the medical waste, what we are talking about, the single-use plastic like mask, gown, all those gloves. There are technologies which are being developed to put these plastics to reuse. You can actually convert them back into the the monomers or the constituents from which they are made. So these are the kind of areas which people are looking at to recycle these polymers or make the polymers which are biodegradable. But I just want to clarify one notion here. So biodegradable polymer is not a solution to the problem of plastic waste management. Okay, because that has got only very limited applications in packaging. But when we talk about heavy duty applications like automobile, aerospace industry, we need those kind of polymers. What I showed, polyamides, polyimides, polycarbonates, etc. So the best option, is to go for bio-based monomers and minimize the waste. Of course, there are 4 Rs they call, recycle, reuse, all those kind of things. Again, just for the want of, I will not be able to discuss all of that. But the message I just wanted to convey here, plastic industry is, is going to grow, at the rate what I mentioned. It's very important industry because it is a backbone of the modern society. And the only the issues are, rather than depending on the petrochemical sources, can we derive all those monomers from bio sources? And I think early signs are very positive, and the future is bright. We can make all those polymers which we conventionally make from petrochemical sources, from bio-based chemicals, and also recycle them. You can see here the road. This is, yeah. So with this, I would like to conclude. And what we are talking about is circular economy. Like earlier, it was like make, take, and discard. But now we are talking about circular economy. Okay, nothing goes as a waste. And of course, it's not that all of these problems can be solved by technological solution. There are, of course, the human behavior. The political agenda. I think all these are important. So this plastic is actually a very complex problem. So it's not only the science and technology can deliver the solution to the problem, but also it is the human behavior. Okay, that's also an important factor. So with this, I would like to conclude, and I would like to again thank Professor Sriram Sonone, Dr. Suresh Umreji for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for your patience. So I would be happy to take any questions, if you have.
Sir,
Thank you.
sir, thank you very much. If you open the chat box,
Sriramji, sorry, I won't be able to do that. Can you read for me those questions, if it is possible?
okay. Sir, one question I'm reading. Is there any possibility of producing biodegradable polymer in future?
Of course, I touched upon this topic, biodegradable polymer like polylactic acid, the nature works is already commercially available. Okay. And in the Western world, grocery bags are made up of PLA, okay. But it's not a truly biodegradable polymer. But like I said, mentioned, we need polymer which can be recycled. So those kind of efforts are on. And in fact, the biodegradable polymer is not a panacea, meaning, it's not a solution to all the problems. Okay. This message has been conveyed to the society. Like we would need to move away from non-biodegradable polymers to biodegradable polymers. But I don't think that's the right way to do it. Of course, there are certain applications like, medical applications where we need biodegradable polymers. But that's only a small segment, okay? But we definitely need polymers which are non-degradable, but coming from bio sources and which can be recycled, okay? I think that's the right approach or the right way to do things.
Sir, there is one question. Polymer have found its use in almost all areas. Why they are not given details about degrading rate of polymers on labels in which it is used? Why there is no comprehensive reuses and recycling policy considering its use impact on each and every life on earth?
No, actually, there is a symbol, on each of these polymer. I don't know who has asked this question, because it needs a separate discussion. If you look at the bottom of any bottle, there is a symbol actually which is shown, on there are numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, So that has got some special meaning, polymers which can be recycled. So all this classification, categorization has already been done. Okay. So not that polymers cannot be processed. Of course, I am probably trying to be simplistic here. There are issues, like I said, I confess, there are certain issues with the recycling of polymers. But in principle, these polymers can be recycled. Okay. So, there is no one fits all sizes kind of solution here, So it has to be taken up on case to case basis. The discussion needs to be taken up on a case to case.
There is one question: does burning of plastic generate toxic fumes?
Yeah, like, I say, in fact, I just didn't get time to talk about that. The first ever chemical reaction done by man was lighting of the fire. Okay. How important it was, that discovery, invention rather, lighting of fire. Imagine if there is no fire, we will not be able to cook the food. Okay. We will not be able to run our engines, vehicles, if there is no lighting of fire. But this is what actually causes also a problem. It finally, any carbon containing molecules or chemicals get converted into carbon dioxide, causes the problem. When you incinerate, under uncontrolled conditions, it finally ends up into carbon dioxide, which is a wasteful reaction. Okay. But if you do this, burning in the absence of air, it can be converted back into the monomers. So of course, these are all needs, separate discussion actually.
There is another question. If we drink hot water stored in tap bottles, is it cause any health hazards?
Not really, like of course there is something called as a usage temperature, which is dictated by the glass transition temperature of polymer. So it's not a big problem, storing hot water into a bottle. I don't know exactly what this question is, but there are some, usage temperature, defined for each polymer. Okay. Of course, you cannot take it to very high temperature, but warm water is okay. It's not a problem.
So I think it's okay. There are a lot of questions, but we cannot take all the questions.
You can forward me those questions. You can forward me those questions, and then I will be able to, reply by email.
Okay,
Respond.
okay. So, sir, thank you very much for delivering such a nice talk. This
Oh,
talk
it's my pleasure.
was really a fruitful one, and you have shown very important picture that if we remove plastic from our life, so what could be our situation? And whatever slogan is given, "Stop the plastic," it is because of us only, because we are dumping plastic like anything. If we dump plastic systematically, that plastic will be recycled or degrade in a very systematic way, and we can produce another material out of plastic. So, because of human beings' nature only, this particular slogan is there: ki "Stop plastic." Plastic is dangerous or something like that. But I feel plastic is a tool uh, of technology. uh, because of it we can have a different types of products. So thank you very much, Vargapur sir, for delivering your expert talk.
Thank you.
We
Thank
are
you.
blessed to listen you today, and I am hoping
Oh,
that all participants will be blessed today listening you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye bye.
thank you. My pleasure. Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.